Welcome back to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. Raw has just, gone off the air a few hours ago. Let's get into the review of this week's season premiere of Monday Night Raw. Now, some news to add to this before we get into the actual show. Number one, Monday Night Raw will continue on USA Network until December 30th, and then it heads off to the land of Netflix. There was questions around whether Raw would stay on it because technically their deal with USA ended in October. The deal has now been rejigged so that it goes to the end of the year. And the other part of that is starting October 7th, I believe. I've got my dates right. It's been a early morning to watch Raw already. Raw will be 2 hours. So this is a big move back to the old school days of Monday Night Raw. Raw will be 2 hours from October the 7th. That for me is brilliant news. 3 hours of Raw, always quite difficult to do. I think what Hunter may be looking at is it's quite difficult to book and do storylines for those 3 hours. So moving it back to two, at least until the end of the year. We don't know if that's gonna, go on to Netflix as 2 hours as well. We'll have to wait and see. There were rumors this week, just as a side note, that SmackDown was going to be 3 hours on the USA Network. It's SmackDown's debut on the USA on Friday. Not heard that officially. I think it's just how it came up in their listings. So we'll have to see if SmackDown is going to 3 hours on USA this week, whether it's just a one-off, whether it even happens. But Raw going back to 2 hours is a massive, massive positive for the WWE. Really needed to. It's always difficult to book a show, 2 hours, 3 hours with so much going on. So hopefully that's how it stays going forward and it's going to stay at 2 hours, but we'll wait and see. Now, Raw kicked off in a huge way this week. Raw kicked off with the Wyatt Six American made in a crazy street fight. It literally had everything that it needed to do: tables, trash cans, chairs, kendo sticks, you name it. It had it. It was a really fun way to kick off what's going to be really, in many ways, although this is the season premiere on the USA, I don't know if they're going to do another season premiere on Netflix, but should this be the season premiere of Monday Night Raw, it may kicked off the way that they're going to do things going forward. And it was nuts. The Wyatt Six obviously had a lot with American Made in the story. Has been going on for a while now. Hopefully, this is now the end of Zed's story between these two teams, and we can move on. I will mention that there was an interesting bit later on in Raw involving the Wyatt Six. If you're an eagle-eyed viewer, you'll see it. So we'll have a look at that. But the Wyatt Six unsurprisingly won this, a frog splash via Loomis after Sister Abigail on Julius. Loomis hit the frog splash. I'm kind of hoping now that American Made can go on to do bigger and better things, perhaps championships. I keep saying this week in, week out. These four, including Ivy Nile, is our championship material without a shadow of a doubt. So this is hopefully their way of exiting their feud, exiting stage left of the Wyatt Six feud and starting their own path, hopefully now of wins for one and building up to championships for two. Wyatt Six, where do they go from here? Well, it's an interesting side note to it. We may as well talk about it now, but there was a bit where Damage Control were going for the wants to go for the women's tag team championships. I won't spoil because there is a women's tag team match on Raw, title match on Raw, which we'll get to. But they were basically asking for a title shot. Now, in the back of that screen, there was these little snippets to potentially the Wyatt Six being involved. Now, that's a difficult one with Nikki being on her own, and I wouldn't think the men would attack Damage Control. So, could this mean the return of Alexa Bliss to join the Wyatts and to join Nikki? They were together before as a team. So would it be them two are returning to maybe take out Damage Control? Damage Control technically I'm not sure if they're face or heel. It's a weird setup for Damage Control at the minute. I'm still not used to them being a face, but put it that way. But yeah, it seemingly there was a bit at the back where they was asking the tag team champions, well, they demanded a shot at the tag champions, and there was some white six sort of pictures behind one of the champions. So interesting to see where they go with that one. But that feud with the Wyatts and American Made hopefully now comes to an end, and we can move on to see what's next for both teams. What is next for the Judgment Day? Well, what is next for Finn Balor on the Judgment Day? They had a segment with Damian Priest. Basically Damian Priest wanting to get his hands on Finn Balor. Finn weren't going to let it happen on Raw, but where it is going to happen is a Bad Blood in 3 weeks' time. Finn Balor and Damian Priest will clash finally. Damian finally gets his hands on Finn Balor after Finn cost him the victory in his match with Gunther for the WWE and dropping his championship. So, but with that in mind, that Judgment Day did indeed attack Damian Priest. They attacked Rhea Ripley as well, who come out to try and help. They were smashing them over with a crutch. In the end, Damian covered Rhea as the shots rained down from Liv Morgan. So Judgment Day certainly getting their attack, or certainly getting a measure of an attack on Damian and Rhea as we get to move towards Bad Blood. One other match as part of this confirmed for Bad Blood is the rematch for the Women's Championship, which pits Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley coming together again for the Women's Championship. What will happen what will happen with Dom in that match as well? And coincidentally, Jey Uso did eventually make the save for the Judgment Day, where the damage was done at that point, to be quite honest with you. But nevertheless, two matches for Bad Blood made right there. Damian Priest and Finn Balor, Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley. And Bad Blood is certainly living up to its name in the terms of match sense, which is actually really good. The storylines are continuing from SummerSlam and Clash, and really coming to maybe a head there. It would be interesting to see what happens post Bad Blood as we move into like Survivor Series. What happens with the Judgment Day? What happens with Liv and Rhea and Dom and everyone like that? And another match that's actually been confirmed, which we'll talk about in a minute. So yeah, very, very interesting to see what happens after. But Bad Blood certainly shaping up to be that name as a pay-per-view. A little bit on Braun Strowman. He was there on Raw. Basically, looks like another match with Bronson Reed happening sometime soon. He was selling his injuries, but he's still standing from the Bronson Reed match, and he'll be seeing him around. And he did make a bit of a nod to the big dog at this as well. He said he's wounded, Braun Strowman, but he's a monster. He's completely dangerous. But funnily enough, Braun Breaker, I did get his name out in the end as Bronson, Braun, did come up and get into Strowman's face a little bit. So, and he's proof he don't have to be 7 foot tall or a 900-pound monster. But he says the reason Braun is still standing is because he's never been in the ring with the big dog. Well, that's a little bit wrong, because he has been in the ring with the big dog Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, our tribal chief. He was in a monster feud with him for ages. So Braun Breaker seems to be setting up a follow-up match for after the match with the winner of the main event tonight on Raw, which we'll get to at Bad Blood. So seemingly Braun Strowman in his sights. Interesting one, that Braun against Braun. That's going to be a nightmare, isn't it? To get to, if that's where we're going after Bad Blood, it's gonna that's going to be interesting to me to keep saying Braun and Braun. We'll see. But he said he'll be seeing him around, and obviously there's more to come with Bronson Reed as well. Once obviously Bronson was suffering from COVID, so we'll have to wait for that one. But there's obviously going to be a Braun, and Bronson, Triple B. Triple H and Triple B, that they seemingly will be crossing paths very, very soon. Did mention the women's tag team championship match, Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill against the Unholy Union, a rematch. The number, they obviously were the number one contenders. Bianca and Jade won the titles back just very recently, and then we've now got the rematch, which they, as former champions, you do deserve, and you should get your rematch clause. Uh, no, this was going one way for sure. Um, the Bianca and Jade Cargill picking up the victory with a DDT German suplex combination. These four actually got quite good chemistry, actually, to be fair. Alba and Isla are very, very good in the ring. There's no doubt about their in-ring credentials. Their gimmick fits as well. The character fits the person, which is another really important thing. Sometimes you'll get a character on a wrestler and it just doesn't work. It doesn't suit them. With these two, with Alba and Isla, it absolutely that's another weird name, isn't it? Alba and Isla. You got to try and get that right. With those two, it fits what they do, and the whole gimmick thing fits them. They just look the gothic nature and what they're doing. It works for them, and that's it. That's something that really has to play the part with Cargill and Belay, you just got two women chiseled out of stone, pretty much. And eventually we know that that's going to lead into a match between those two at some point, perhaps at WrestleMania. That's going to be the sort of stage will be set for them to kind of have maybe their first ever match. Could be the first ever time they touch hands if they do it right. Well, having said that, unless it's a match out of respect, maybe Jade will have to turn on Bianca. And I don't see Bianca turning on Jade, not with the Street Profits being face again. If it was the other way, where the Street Profits were with Bobby Lashley, perhaps Bianca could have aligned with Bobby and then they could have done it that way. But they didn't, and they're no longer here. So the Street Profits are, but Bobby Lashley is not. So we will have to wait and see what happens there. But yeah, very, very good women's tag match. A great showcase. More women's matches kind of later on Raw, which is always a good thing as well. So we'll see a bit more later on. A segment that was next. Gunther and Bret Hart was in the ring. Gunther basically he was saying Bret was one of his childhood heroes, and he's in all seriousness, the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. And Brett was like, you got no argument here. And then there was like, there's a little bit of the passing of the torch moment, how Brett was the best, but now he's Gunter. And Gunter was saying that Brett will always be a close second to his all-time personal favorite. And that personal favorite happens to be Bill Goldberg. You know, you could have said maybe Shawn Michaels, but I suppose what better way to get a bit of cheap heat than Brett's arch nemesis in Brett's mind. Great to see Brett though, looking well, which is really, really good. And that bit was quite an interesting bit. Sami Zayn interrupted this, and it's going that way. I mean, I think we know where this is going. World Heavyweight Championship, Sami Zayn versus Gunther Part 2. Um, and Gunther kind of responded to that with Sammy, with all due respect, Brett, you're not in my league, and Sammy, as much as you want to be, and as much as Brett is your hero, you're far away of being in the same league as Bret Hart. And it's still a no at this point from Gunther. So Gunther is still not giving in to Sami Zayn's request. I assume it will happen. It should really happen at Bad Blood, but WWE have already had doing this great job of condensing cards down. And instead of doing 11 matches and matches being, going shorter when they should be longer, they have a habit of doing a 5, 6 match pay-per-view card and giving it all time, and get every match getting time, which for me, I much prefer that over, I always say quality over quantity, especially in wrestling. I don't like to sit there in a 10-match card and feel like half of these matches are going too quickly, or some of these matches shouldn't even be on the card. So to have 6 matches that all should be there, but if you look at it, you've got Rhea, you've got Dom, so you've got Rhea and Liv, you've got Finn and Damien, you've got another match coming that's been made in a minute. And then on top of that, you've got the SmackDown side. You're gonna have Cody probably on Raw. So there's 4 matches. The third one we'll get to in a minute. You've only got 2 left. It makes sense for Sammy and then who would you have as the last match? So it's a interesting point with 6 matches. Maybe they'll do 7 on this one. We'll have to wait and see. Although I expect one of these matches to go long, and the reasons for that will be in a minute. Well, we'll certainly be showing you in a minute. There was a little bit of a backstage brawn breaker getting into the face of all of his title contenders. This time it was Pete Dunne. Basically, Braun was just saying he can't beat him in a fight, and he wishes Pete Dunne luck in his match. And as he does that, Shaman clocks Pete Dunne with the Broad kick, and he just tried to attack him with the Shillelagh as that got split up. But then we moved into Dominic Mysterio and Dragon Lee. Dominic Mysterio picked up. I think it was good. It was a good match, but at this point again, Judgment Day interference. Dragon Lee. I don't know what's gone on with Dragon Lee. See, this has been an issue, right? When Dragon Lee got called up to SmackDown, he at least was having good matches and he was winning matches and it was good. He was there and he was, being showcased correctly. He's not. This is the first time I think he's been in a match for a while. Maybe he was on last week. Just been asleep since then. I can't quite remember. But bottom line being is Dragon Lee on Raw isn't working. Yes, the Judgment Day did get involved. Yes, JD McDonough did put Dominic Mysterio's foot on the bottom rope. There was a brawl on the outside with the LWO that was out there with the Judgment Day. Liv Morgan then hit a chop block behind the referee's back on Dragon Lee, and this is the thing now. Excuse me. Dominic Mysterio needs Liv Morgan to win a match against Dragon Lee. Does he? Is he that? I don't know with that. I'm not too sure what to make of that side of it either. But never look. Dominic Mysterio does win the match by pinfall. It was a good match. There was a lot of interference in this, perhaps a little bit too much LWO Judgment Day stuff. Maybe that's where they're going afterwards. Maybe they're reigniting the feud with LWO. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see after Bad Blood. But nevertheless, win for Dominic, win again for the Judgment Day. And at this point, they go backstage again, and that's where the damage control and the Judgment Day bit happens. A damage control when Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill, happens for the wanting to challenge the women's titles, where the Wyatt Six stuff is in the back. Now, if you do remember, when it comes to sort of having a reason for the attack, they attacked Chad Gable because Chad turned on American Alpha, Otis, Maxine, and Tozawa, and their damage control. There is also a turn on that they turned on Bailey, so there is that sort of the story behind it would be to do with that, I would assume, which makes logical sense from where the Wyatt Six have actually, I keep saying Judgment Day, where the Wyatt Six have actually, nature of their attacks are on people that have perhaps turned on their families, so to speak. And that one right there would make a lot of sense, but given that they turned on Bailey. 6-woman tag, apologies, on Raw. It was Pure Fusion Collective, Sonya, Shayna, and Zoe against Lyra Valkyria, Selena Vega, and a mystery partner. And this mystery partner was the returning Natalia, who's been away for a while, signed a new contract with WWE. The contract was coming up for renewal. She re-signed it. She now come back together. This was a good 6-woman tag, actually. Again, 6 women there with great in-ring ability. Selena Vega always improving. Nice to see Lyra Valkyria back in the ring again. Obviously, the 3 on the Pure Fusion Collective have got great MMA background. Zoe Stark's a bit more of I would say more of a boxer or something along those lines, but great great contrasting of styles a little bit. Worked quite well in this match for sure. Natalia did make Zoe Stark tap, which was always going to happen. Natalia returning in Calgary with the sharpshooter, good old good old fashioned throwback to Brett, who was on earlier on in the show. So really good to see Natty back. Where does she go from here? I would still like to see her in NXT, and it's not a downgrade when I say that. I want her to go for I want to take on Jordan Grace and go for the NXT Championship. So maybe they can make that happen. Maybe it Bound for Glory. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see as the open challenges keep on coming for Jordan Grace as well. But Natalia coming back. Jeez, Natalia coming back. It's early morning, guys. Coming back to WWE, returning to Raw. Always good to see, and we'll find out what happens and what's in her future coming up very, very soon. They did plug Survivor Series coming our way on November the 30th from Vancouver, Canada. So back in Canada for Survivor Series War Games. It is going to be War Games again, so lots of stuff could happen there. Natalia did have a nice embrace actually with Brett backstage as well, which was nice. Now, here it comes. So we were mentioned earlier on about a third match being made for Bad Blood. Well, this was Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre come out to the ring. There was a lot of CM Punk chants. He basically called CM Punk an arrogant prick. It's up to what they, each to their own, but a lot of people may agree with that, to be fair. Anyway, McIntyre was initially saying that he actually wants the World Heavyweight Championships. He's been cheated out of it for multiple occasions, which, fair. And he plugged his film with Batista, the Killer's Game. But he wants that, you know, World Championship. And then he said, things are perfect, almost perfect. There's one loose end he's got to cover, and I'm about to some bad news, and it involves you, Wade. I don't have many friends left in the world, let alone in this company. And you're one of my oldest friends. We go back a couple of decades. They come to the country together, yada yada yada. You're the only logical voice that fought my case, which is very, very true. So why, when it come for the time for me to end him, did you step in my way? Interesting. He said he's not angry with him. He's just disappointed. But if you do it again, that's going to be the end of him. He's going to do something about it to Wade Barrett, which was very, very, wow. You kind of like, well, steady on, Oh, that is interesting because he did indeed get in Drew McIntyre's way at one point. But Adam Pearce came out and said, CM Punk isn't through with you. And actually, CM Punk has requested a match on October the 5th, Bad Blood in Atlanta, Georgia. However, it is going to be CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, Hell in the Cell, which is exactly where we said this was going after the victories that they both had over each other. The rubber match, it's 1-1. We're going to Hell in the Cell in a few weeks' time. Punk returns to Raw next week as it happens as well. But we're going to get the feud ender between, well, what we should be the feud ender between McIntyre and Punk inside the Hell in the Cell structure. Brilliant. Love it. Absolutely love it. These two have been on a great feud. It's really worked. You can tell that, the animosity is kind of a bit real between those two, but they're getting it done in the ring and they're getting it done when it matters. And the third and final, well, what we should be the final match between the two is fittingly inside the Hell in the Cell structure. Looking forward to that at Bad Blood. That should be a really good match. Now, Karrion Kross, what we forgot to mention last week, as you know, they moved away from the Judgment Day, and he's now started playing games with the Miz. And this brought Xavier Woods in and said, like, don't listen to Cross's mind games. And the Miz said, Carrion's not wrong. I've been in a slump, or a rut. And Woods tried to hype up Miz, talking about the Miz's accomplishments in wrestling, massive Intercontinental Champion, former World Champion, United States Champion, Tag Champion. And this brings Kofi Kingston in and said, actually, coming up soon in November, it will be the 10th anniversary of the New Day. And I've actually managed to get us a world tag team title shot against the champions in November. Hopefully that's hopefully we don't wait that long for Finn Balor and JD McDonough to defend the tag team champions. It's already been 80 odd days since a defense, but the New Day will be getting a shot at the tag team championships in November. Now, two things can happen here. Is that the moment that Xavier turns on Kofi, or is that the moment the New Day win the titles again? We will have to wait and see. Finn Balor was next with Rey Mysterio, a great encounter, as you can imagine, with these two. Really, indeed, did indeed love this match. Look, Rey Mysterio kind of works with everybody, and with Finn, it's just like a match made in heaven. Finn did indeed win the match via pinfall on this. But it was the end afterwards. He literally Balor refused to let go of a single leg crab as well. He did then deliver a shotgun drop kick into the steel ring post, and then did another running drop kick into Ray into the LED screen. So interesting with that. They seemingly did they take him out? What was the deal there? But Finn Balor literally destroying Rey Mysterio this week on Raw, and we're seeing what I like about it is we're kind of seeing Demon Finn without the makeup on Finn Balor, because when you go to Bad Blood and you take on Damian Priest, there's got to be a bit more of a killer instinct in Finn Balor. So is he going to bring back Demon Finn for that, or is it just going to be Demon Finn without the makeup for the match with Damian? Be interesting either way we see it, but a very big win for Rey Mysterio this week, and a very nasty attack on Rey Mysterio, showing Finn Balor's demon side, so to speak. Main event on Raw now: Jey Uso, Ilya Dragunov, Pete Dunne, Braun Strowman in the #1 contenders match. Great main event, great main event on Raw. Lots of action, as you can imagine, with these four. Loved it. It was absolutely awesome. Four great superstars. Four, barring Strowman, who's the power, but he's got speed behind him. You've got three other guys in there that just complement each other so well in what they do. Little bit disappointed Ilya didn't win, but in another way, I'm glad, because I don't think the winner of this is unseating Braun Breaker as Intercontinental Champion. So there is two sides of it, but Dragunov does need to start picking up victories on Monday Night Raw. Otherwise, again, do we look at him as another wasted talent from NXT? That's just not worked potentially. But anyway, great four-way match, and really good victory for Jey Uso, which is great. Jey Uso picks up the victory. He was yeeting his way, turns around, and looking at Braun Breaker, who was in the ring as Raw goes off the air with a standoff between the two. Very good. Look, Jey Uso, he's not going to win the Intercontinental Championship. If this is at Bad Blood, then again, you look at that match. Is that going to go to Bad Blood? Then you've got another match, and that's sort of 7, and ball going into 8. But if it does, could it be that the bloodline cost him the match against Braun Breaker? And we're going into Smack. Kevin Owens has a mystery partner on SmackDown this week against A-Town Down Under. Is that going to be Sami Zayn? Could it be Randy Orton? Again, we'll have to wait and see. Lots of stuff going on. Season premiere of Raw was good. Season premiere of SmackDown this week, headlined by Cody Rhodes versus Solo Sikoa inside a steel cage. Is it 3 hours? Is it not 3 hours? We'll have to wait and see. We'll be reviewing that on Saturday, so keep it locked on the channel. Keep it locked for other review shows. SmackDown will be reviewed this week as well. We're going to have all the other review shows dropping as normal. So keep it locked to HTT Buckle on Twitter and YouTube, and Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast on Instagram. But until then, everybody, this has been the Raw review on the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast with me, the front man, Adam Cousins. And until next time, everybody, buckle down, stay safe, and goodbye.